Square Ball Podcast.
Well, hello there and welcome to the show. Dan here from the Square Ball, Michael's here from the Square Ball, and Phil Hay from The Athletic, who will answer for his crimes momentarily. First thing to say is that the show is brought to you, powered by West Yorkshire Electrical.
Zzz. That's electrical noise.
Thank you very much, Michael, for that demonstration. I wasn't aware of what that might be.
It was good acting, but I'm not getting a shock.
No.
To be clear.
Good, I'm glad. Nor will you with the work that West Yorkshire Electrical do. Great bunch of lads.
Correct.
And they work with anything with wires in it. Fully accredited, which I think is very, very important these days. Mm-hmm. You don't want a fully unaccredited electrician, do you?
Nope. Not even partially unaccredited.
No. Get all the credits and the accreditations. They will do CCTV. They will do light installation. They will do EV chargers. They will do battery storage. They will do
solar panels. And your roof at the same time.
And they've got roofers now, which is what they want us to let you know. They've got roofers who will do your roof, regardless whether you're in solar panels done or not. So it's West Yorkshire Electrical and roofers. How exciting is that? What a development.
But that's not their website.
It's not. It's wyelectrical.co.uk for details. And you can find them on socials as well. Right then, Phil.
Are these lifetime crimes or merely last night?
Well, if this turns into a 10-episoder, then maybe it could be lifetime crimes. But let's look back with sheepish eyes at last night when what we're talking about is anybody who follows you on Twitter will know you have a habit sometimes of putting your foot in it when it comes to
jinxing.
Yeah,
yes.
of jinxing things. And
I think the key thing with this one is the time between tweet one and what happened down at Ipswich, which must have been 45 seconds, probably.
Most exciting 45 seconds of your life?
Yeah, probably was.
Yeah. 21:47 is the timestamp last night when you said, well, that's not a bad night. And then Ipswich went and scored and made it 4-3.
Still wasn't a bad night, you know.
Do you know what? It wasn't, was it? It was all right. I mean, in the run-up to this, we said it's about a slam dunk at home win as you're going to get the Ipswich-Rotherham game.
But interestingly, it wasn't, was it? No.
Rotherham, I think, had the run of them for the second half. So maybe the pressure is getting to him a little bit. Who knows?
Well, Michael and I were, and first of all, apologies for that. That's even by my standards, worst of the worst. But Michael and I were talking before we started recording, and we were saying it's not a great sign, is it, to have conceded 3 times at home to Rotherham and to have sneaked it like that, although it is still a really good result at the stage of the season where it's kind of the results that count. But I've written this morning about the defence at Leeds and how actually, although there's been a lot of attention on Farke's attack since the start of the season, as there would be because it's been very good, defensively he's made them into a right old unit too. And I think it's quite easy to remember that when Rotherham came to Elland Road, they hardly laid a glove on Leeds. And watching that last night, I was quite taken by the fact that Ipswich got into quite a bit of trouble in that game, having seen like they had it sewed up at 3-1. But the more important result, I thought, was probably Southampton at home to Hull, because I did think that was a game that Southampton had a good chance of winning, even though I do think Hull are a good side, and I think Hull have got a decent shout at the top 6, and they've got some really good players in that squad. That is probably the more damaging result.
It shows, I think, both results potentially show that they can both be got at, which is what I took from it last night. And if there's a time of the season to have a wobble, the run-in would be it for me if I had to pick one for the opposition. Yeah. Searing insight there for you.
I think you said to me yesterday, if Leeds could just win every game from here, that would be ideal. Well, go along with that.
I mean, it's a week ago when I was suggesting we could catch Leicester if things fell.
Well, Farke was almost hinting at that after Plymouth, I felt. You know, the idea that it could still be doable and it could still be possible. It was just that that discussion wasn't going to be able to go on for much longer unless Leicester started to falter slightly. And it's pushing it a little bit to say that Leicester have started to falter. They got beat at home to Middlesbrough, which obviously doesn't help them. But you would think that if there's going to be a big swing in this, and if we are going to get a proper title race, this will have to be the weekend.
We are now odds on for promotion.
Is that right?
That's right.
Do I need to start making some investments, so to speak?
Mitigating the risk.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ipswich result last night, I don't know if this is just me being optimistic, but it does remind me a little bit of a couple of weeks ago when Southampton were run pretty close by Huddersfield, and you kind of go, all right, they have got the win there, but maybe it is indicative of problems around the corner, and since then they have lost a couple of games, haven't they? So maybe that's still to come for Ipswich.
What we're basically doing is, I think, if you there's a thread on Wacko which I dive into all the time. You follow things on Twitter, about the promotion. We're just basically now
Straw clutching?
not straw clutching. We're indulging in wishful thinking. That's not to say that it's wrong. I'm not saying it's completely mindless wishful thinking. It's rooted in reality.
No, I don't think it is. I mean, when we started digging into the defensive numbers, and they're really, really impressive. And you know that old saying that defences win you titles, attacks win you games, or I think it was the other way around that it was put. And there's a bit of truth. It's not strictly true. I mean, there was the season when Norwich went up under Farke where they conceded 57 goals and somehow still won the league. But actually, if you go through most seasons in the Championship, very few of the clubs who get promoted concede more than a goal a game. And Leeds are a mile off conceding a goal a game. You know, down at 26 at the moment, the same as Leicester. But once you really get into the numbers, you find that they have, by quite a distance, the best defence in the division, including Leicester. And it's very, very, very impressive. And yes, they've got a really strong squad and Farke has loads of resources, but it doesn't just happen on the basis that you've got good players. It happens from the structure of the team. And even in the season when Leeds went up under Bielsa, and I know that latterly there's a lot of criticism of Leeds defending, they were kind of regarded towards the end of his time as a team who couldn't defend, and I think if we're being brutally honest, they were a team who couldn't. You know, it was a lot of goals being conceded. But in that season when they were promoted, they were absolutely rock solid at the back, really strong, really consistent, didn't give away many goals, but didn't also, crucially, and this is the same with Farke's team, didn't give away many big chances, didn't give away many shots on target. And I don't know, I was thinking last night as this was all going on, past few weeks, it's felt a little bit like that meme. You know, the guy in the chip shop where there's the fight going on behind him and he's just fiddling on his phone in the front. Farke's a little bit like that in the sense that the stress, certainly since the turn of the year, hasn't seemed to be here. You know, it hasn't seemed to be on him. And I don't know if that's about to change, and I don't know if Leeds are going to hit one of those spells. But it's almost been Leeds quietly getting on with what they're doing while, you know, things are happening elsewhere.
It's interesting you say that, because I was thinking in the car on the way in this morning, like, you know, what can we talk about in this show? Because we're in danger, I suppose, of, in the same way that we were last year, when it felt like we were having the same conversation week after week after week, but in a negative way, that we've kind of done the same sort of thing, but in a positive way this season. So, you know, how do we frame this chat that we have this morning? And I thought, actually, this is about Farke, isn't it? There's a lot of this is
Probably
about Farke
yeah.
and the way that, he's handled himself, the coolness with which he's done it. And I was thinking, actually, when the thought sort of landed with me, I thought, hasn't he done a really, really good job?
Yeah.
He's done an absolutely brilliant job, you know, to date. There's time for all this to go wrong and unravel yet, of course there is, because it's Leeds United. We know what happens with Leeds United.
But even if it does unravel, it doesn't mean he's done a bad job.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's one of the thoughts I landed. Yeah, even if we lose this in the end, all the evidence points to this trending, if you like, in the right direction, doesn't it? And promotion, I suppose, sooner rather than later. And I know that's a really, really dickheadish thing to say as a Leeds fan, but that's how it's felt, hasn't it? And I think we've kind of been pushing that reality away all season because we're terrified of what Leeds can do to us.
Can I give an alternative point of view?
You can.
That we're all currently thinking, right, this is fine now because we're winning games, and I guess we're seeing Southampton, that run can't go on forever, we kept saying, and sure enough, they've lost a couple of games. But can our run go on forever? Like, if you're talking about regression to the mean, at some point we do have to start dropping some points ourselves.
I did think that.
I said to you last night, there's absolutely no way I would back Leeds to win all of the games that are left collectively, because it just so rarely happens, to the point of never happens in the Championship. But I think I'm at the stage now where I would back them for individual games going into every single one, including Fridays against Leicester, which is not to say they will win it. And I do think that's just a 50-50.
This is how I feel about the whole thing. You're right.
Yeah, 50-50 contest. But there's not a single fixture at the moment that I'm going to thinking, I think this will be a problem today. You can see how it could develop into a problem. But you know that if Leeds play well and defend well and attack well, which they tend to, then they will probably find a way to do it. And I think one of the consequences of making it look easy, which Leeds have since the turn of the year, is that people start to make the assumption that it is easy, and so start to kind of, I guess, sway towards the idea that you've got the best players, you've got the best squad, you've got such deep resources. And I think it's fair to say that there's no way that this squad should be finishing outside the top six. You know, that I think is reasonable to expect that.
Nor do I think we will now.
No, I think that's safe to say. Even if I say that, we're probably nailed on for that at the very least.
A mere 18 points away from seventh.
Yeah,
at the minute.
surely impossible. But I would imagine Elland Road is always quite a hostile ground, and I would imagine on Friday night it's going to be particularly hostile for Leicester. And that's always when Elland Road is at its best. But it hasn't had to be too hostile this season because the games have been quite routine and the victories have been quite routine, and there's been a lot of confidence in the way that Leeds have played. And the one exception is probably West Brom at home back in August. But that was more about introspection than it was about West Brom. I don't think West Brom would have felt the hostility. I think West Brom would probably have felt like they were rubbernecking on internal strife at Leeds. That was the night.
Do you think that's what the promotion hangover is, Phil? That kind of feeling that descended on things at that early stage, that very sort of first weekend of the season, first month.
Relegation hangover.
Yeah. Now I look back on it, that's how I feel like it was, because now I feel quite free, like I'm enjoying myself, whereas that felt like a real burden and an emotional grind.
But I don't think it was purely just the hangover from having got relegated. Although obviously everything's intertwined, but it was also the product of players trying to force their way out, and commitment being questionable in certain pockets of the squad, wondering whether or not you were actually going to be able to get a squad together that was going to compete properly. There were times in August where I was thinking to myself, he might need 2 stabs at this, Farke. It's not to say that they won't be, and I think I predicted 6th right before a ball was kicked, and before they'd signed the players that they did towards the back end of the window. But it felt as if the top 2 would be asking quite a lot, not necessarily impossible. And if you're in the playoffs, then there's every chance that you get smoked at some point. And I was just thinking, maybe he will need an extended period of time with this. So yeah, obviously, it's the kind of lingering annoyance of relegation, but I think that was more to do with the politics of what was happening. And particularly on that evening, you'll remember the banner in the East Stand, which weirdly was produced by the guy who's plastered every room in my house. As it happened, but that was the night where Nonto had asked not to play, and at home, and there was a lot of frustration over that, and there was actually quite a lot of sort of circling the wagons, and that thing that Leeds do very well of saying we're not having this, and I think Farke felt it that night. I think it was kind of good for everybody. It was a bit of a line in the sand. But it was a difficult start. It was a difficult start. And although it's been made to look easy, it hasn't been particularly easy. And it's quite interesting, I thought, a few weeks ago when, without really very much prompting, Farke started talking about the Bielsa season and the comparison between the points they have now, what they're trending towards, and where they were comparatively in the season under Bielsa. And what he was saying was, we've got more points per game at the moment than they had back then. And when you start to compare the numbers, and as I say, it does have a stronger squad, there's no question about that, but really, really impressive. Really impressive. And defensively especially, actually.
That's the thing. I was struck by the thought last night that if you'd said to me at the start of the season in August, with the sort of chaos that unfolded, the instability, after 33 match weeks, you will be second in the table with 69 points, I would have gone, yeah, that sounds bloody great. And
you would have said...
That's what prompted the thought of Farke having done a really good job.
You would have said, in that case, we'd be virtually promoted. And in most seasons, you would have been right. But this season's just been a complete freak with the way that it's going for the top 4. So it's still wide open, and it will be wide open even more so if Leeds win on Friday night and Southampton and Ipswich pick up points. It will be very, very tight for the spread of the 4 clubs there. But, we've spoken a few times through the season about the feeling that Farke's football isn't necessarily the most exciting, and it certainly isn't as all-out attack as Bielsa's was. They don't have the same kind of licence to just go at it constantly. The sort of positive aspect of that, the way he sets up, so a kind of sitting midfielder who lets his fullbacks get forward. And I know it's a kind of 4-2-3-1, but you do tend to find with the midfielders that you've got somebody like Kamara who's pushing on further forward, somebody like Ampadu or Gruev who is sitting. It's meant that the defensive record has been exceptionally strong. And, one of the big failings in the Premier League last season was the number of big chances. I mean, obviously conceded a lot of goals, Leeds. But the problem was that they gave away so many big chances that they were always going to concede a lot of goals. I think it was 112 in the end over 38 games. It's just a joke, like you cannot get away with that, or you're not likely to get away with that. This season,
but Jesse said it was all fine.
Yeah, apparently. So I didn't watch Monday night, actually. I was out with a few people from our office, but I assume he said the right things.
He said the right things.
This season, 31 big chances, and I get that it's a different league, and I get that we've swung from Leeds being, weaker than most sides in the Premier League to Leeds being stronger than most sides in the Championship. So naturally, there's going to be a difference. But that's by far and away the best record in the Championship. And once you start to pick through all the different metrics, you find that Leeds are pretty much leading on all of them.
Hopefully, we will lead on the table metric. That's the one I'd like us to lead on.
Well, that's what matters in the end, isn't it?
It really is, Phil.
But you tend to find that one very often leads to the other.
This is the first time with, 13 games. 13 games to go. It's over in 10 weeks. Dear God. With 13 games to go.
I can't believe that, actually.
I know. It's crazy, isn't it? I'm thinking, even if we do have a little wobble, if we lose a game here or there, we've seen what this team's capable of doing over a slightly longer stretch. There's no need to panic. And while Leeds fans, are sort of prone towards extreme reactions, because of the mad shit we've done over the last 20 years that has kind of damaged us all, I think, a great deal. There's probably a sort of low-level underlying confidence that even if there is a minor wobble, that they can correct it quite quickly this season. And that's one thing I really trust Farke to do, is to not let things get completely out of hand in that regard. So even if Friday brings a point or whatever, there's still a lot of football to play between now and the end of the season.
Save that audio, Michael. No need to panic.
I stand by it. And as you say, even if we don't do it this season, we will still have racked up a tremendous amount of points in the bid to do so. And do you know what? If two teams outscore us, then fair enough.
A draw would be a really good result on Friday.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to draw that game, but I don't think anybody would come away from it saying, well, that's intensely damaging. We were chatting last night about Hull, weren't we, and saying they're quite a good team, Hull. They really are. I think
of our remaining fixtures, that's one I'm keeping an eye on. That.
Well, not only that one, but also I think Watford, Good Friday away, Hull at home, Easter Monday. That's it.
They would say Easter's definitive, don't they, Phil?
Well, it certainly could be. And I think looking through the games, taking out probably Southampton on the last day, that looks like the toughest patch, or the sort of toughest moment of them. There are a lot of games in there that I would fancy Leeds to win, but that'll be a hard weekend. That
Southampton have got to travel to all the top three clubs away before the end of the season.
They don't have a great record against the top sides.
They don't, do they? That's the thing, is that you look at it and you look at the evidence, and I don't know, like say you spend this time sort of denying what your eyes tell you, don't you? Because you don't want to commit to a position.
Well, and interestingly, they're the only team this season that have really given Leeds a rinsing, aren't they? Yeah. Southampton.
Very different defence that day.
Yeah,
it was.
And I was going to say, it's very changed, wasn't it? Deliberately changed, which is something that he's actually shied away from, since it felt like he took the data from that Southampton game and from the Stoke game and went, do you know what? I'm not going to be doing that again, because I've tried it twice and it didn't work.
Yeah, and that was the only day where he sort of purposely left out Road on as well, which was clearly a bad move, because he's been a really big reason actually why they've been so good defensively, because he is in that modern mould of centre-back who can do defensive things but can do what you need them to do on the ball, and also, as we've seen so many times, has the pace to hold a high line, which again in a centre-back is absolutely critical these days.
Yeah, Southampton still also have to play at home Coventry. They've got Preston, Sunderland and Watford, all of whom are in the top half. They also need to play Middlesbrough, who are floating around the middle. And then their other three away games are Cardiff, Birmingham and Blackburn, as well as the top three. So that's fascinating. I know Ipswich's running looks like it eases for a little bit now, but then gets really hard towards the end, because again they're involved in these kind of top fixtures that could swing either way. And that's one of the good things, actually. If you look at our fixtures, we've got obviously Leicester this Friday, and then we've got Southampton at the end. But in between, we're not playing any of the top clubs. There's no real 6-pointers in there, is there? Whereas there's a few more for the other teams.
No, there's that little spell actually after Watford and Hull. It's Coventry, it's Sunderland, it's Blackburn, it's Middlesbrough. That's not that easy. It doesn't look wildly difficult either, but I think, how best to put it, it's definitely a run that will keep you honest, that, isn't it? Keep you honest,
I like that, yeah. So attention turning to Friday then, and it almost needs no build-up, does it?
They got a bit upset in Leicester, didn't they?
Did they?
With my tweets, yeah. It just goes to show it's not just in Leeds. Yeah.
What have you been doing now?
Oh, no, it was after the game. I sort of said, I kind of rather boldly, stroke rashly suggested that Leeds had deserved to win that game.
Right. Oh, you mean the away game?
Yeah.
Oh, you clickbait journalist.
That's
Phil
right,
Hay,
yeah.
wasn't it?
Oh, of course, that's when we rolled out the title, clickbait journalist. Yeah. But you were right. We did deserve to win that game.
Well, I thought they
were handy, weren't they?
I thought the superior intensity in that game came from Leeds. And I didn't think Leicester were able to figure Leeds out. I thought of the two teams, Leeds deserved the win. And the word, obviously, there was the shot off the crossbar. There was the late save, excellent save from Mellier from Dewsbury Hall. But I thought it was Leeds' night. generally.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a big statement as well to go there and do that, given how how good Leicester had been. I thought it was pretty impressive. And I think it will come down to that again on Friday. I think whoever plays better, and I know it sounds obvious, but I think whoever plays better on Friday will win the game. I think that's how it will go.
Yeah, every big test that's been put in our way this season, we've passed. It's been the ones that you haven't expected us to necessarily wobble on that we wobbled.
Yeah, but I think, as Farke said a few times, that you can't go unbeaten in the Championship. It's just not possible. It's too hard and it's too
many teams. I guess
too many games. Too congested a schedule in certain periods, and because of that, you as a coach, you sometimes have to make changes that you wouldn't particularly want to make, or players who you rely on really heavily have spells where the form dips because they're a bit fatigued, or it just gets on top of them briefly. I think to look at Gruev, Cruyff, I think Cruyff we've settled on, haven't we? Johan Cruyff. To look at him now, you can see how they would have won that Stoke game had you had him in this form back then. But he was coming into the game completely cold. He hadn't had any sort of lead up to it. He hadn't had much in the way of minutes. So it kind of put Leeds at risk that night. But even on that evening, you had the Bamford penalty.
I was going to say, we were one penalty miss away from winning that, weren't we?
That's it.
Was he alongside Ampadu that night as well? I think.
He must have been, given that Ampadu never gets dropped ever. And I think Farke has since said, and I would agree with this, that they're almost a bit too similar. You end up with kind of two holding midfielders, which you don't really need. Whereas with Kamara and Gray, who hasn't played in midfield for a good while now, or not started in midfield for a good while now, you almost create a midfielder in behind the midfielder, and you get a bit more presence going forward, which helps and is a positive thing. But it has been, Michael touched on this, and you're right, it's been a theme since the turn of the year of players on the fringes coming into contention or coming back into form like Nonto, and you've got Dan James back fit, but I just don't see how or why Farke would drop Nonto at the moment.
We were sent a question actually about Archie Gray. Have a listen to this.
Just wondering about Archie Gray. He's played the majority of the season at right back. Do you think his future will be at right back going forwards, or do you think that next season we will try him again in central midfield? Obviously, he's played really well at right back, but if he's plying his trade there and playing the majority of the games there, will that hinder his development as a central midfielder? Cheers.
Thanks to Vivek for that one. What do you reckon,
Good question, that. Really good question. Well, the fullback role's changing, isn't it? And you're almost now starting to get, you've seen like with Alexander-Arnold and others, you're starting to get almost like hybrid fullbacks who are a bit like midfielders too. So it's perhaps not a coincidence that Gray is getting used there. And I know he has played there with England as well, but he has been a central midfielder through his time in the academy. But maybe not a coincidence that he's getting played there because of the way that position is developing. But I think, to be brutally honest, his passing and his vision and everything else is a bit too good. And I just can't see anything other than him being a central midfielder long term. But it was one of those things when they were looking for a right back in the January window. They were I remember somebody at the club saying this, they were very conscious of not wanting, of wanting a good right back. And they got Connor Roberts, who is a very good right back, but not wanting that to immediately compromise Gray's minutes. They still wanted Gray to be in the team and they still wanted him to be playing. And actually, if anything, he's got better since Roberts has come in, so it's made it impossible for Farke to... It would have to be a fitness thing at the moment to get Roberts into the team. And given how well Cruyff is playing in the centre, given how well Ampadu's doing at centre-back, but the fact that Ampadu would be the automatic go-to to shift back into that role, and given that Kamara is so reliable as well. I mean, Kamara is so good under pressure. When he's facing the press and he's got people on him, he's so press resistant. It's really impressive. But yeah, for now, I don't think they would want to move Gray out of that role. But I just don't see how. It feels a little bit like even if Haaland was doing quite well on the left wing, you'd be saying, yeah, but get him in the middle. So I feel like there's going to come a point where you absolutely have to invest in the best of Gray and. In what is his best position, and that seems to me to be in the centre of midfield.
I just feel like for now, after a year of watching Rasmus Christensen and a fading Luke Ayling trying to play right back, it's just a joy watching Gray. And like his level of composure against, how much did we pay for Christensen? 12 million?
About £10 million, yeah.
An experienced, apparently seasoned international right back.
I've got a picture in my mind of what you're thinking of now. It's him punting the ball down.
That one up the line.
Yeah.
And that thing where somehow a small winger beats him to a header as well.
Yeah.
Well, also, that pass to Nonto for the goal down at Swansea from Gray, which is just like, sees it, picks it, plays it perfectly. You just will not get that from Christensen. And I don't think you're going to get that from Christensen.
No. It's mad, isn't it? You spend £10 million on a footballer and you've got one who can't really pick a pass on the evidence that we saw so far. Maybe he can, and maybe he just, I don't know, something to do with the change of country and conditions or whatever. But you start to see, don't you, over time, that what sets apart really, really, truly good footballers from the not so good ones, and it is its decision making and the ability to wait a pass.
I know a lot of players develop over time, and some people aren't complete footballers till they're in the 20s, but it feels like the really, really good ones, the Fab Delph, Lewis Cook, Archie Gray, you see them as teenagers, and you go straight away, you go like, yeah, look at them. Yeah,
it's just evidence. It's
like you can just see in the way that they carry themselves on the pitch and their positional sense and just their decision making and stuff. It's a cut above what you'd expect at that age.
And even that isn't, it's not a sort of precise judgment. That I remember watching Eddie White for the first time. He was like 16 and thinking he looks, exceptional. And his body did let him down in a big way. And I think as well, he went through that weird period, didn't he, where he was playing as a right winger, he's playing as a left. Like, couldn't really work out where he was supposed to go.
Warnock's number 10.
But Delph in League One, as soon as Delph started playing, you just sat and thought he looks miles above everybody else here. And it's kind of the same with Gray. I do feel like you could shift Gray into the Premier League and he would just adapt and adjust, and he'd have better players around him as well. And you're right, and you do tend to find, if you look at Leeds Academy, once players get to 20, 21, 22, if it's not really happening, it doesn't feel like it's going to happen particularly. You feel like the best of them will have come through by that point, and that's certainly been the case with Gray.
Well, it's the Premier League that's up for grabs, isn't it now? And you've got the best home record in the division against the best away record on Friday.
He's got his tables.
Here we go. I knew it.
Leicester's away form is genuinely a cut above everything else, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I did look at that myself. They've got a very, very good record.
So they've played 16 away and they've got 38 points from it. Ipswich have got, and everybody beneath has played 17 games. 32 for Ipswich, 32 for Southampton, 29 for us. They just absolutely stormed the whole thing. Actually, it's probably their away form that's won them the league so far.
I'm quite fascinated by what's going on down there, though.
They're not happy, are they? Still,
it feels to me as if they're almost opening the door to everybody else by being a bit discontent and unhappy with what is a really strong season. You sent me a tweet last weekend after they lost to Middlesbrough, and it was somebody ranting about Maresca. And there was a fair point made in that, or at least there was a reasonable point of debate in that, where he was saying, the guy who tweeted was saying, Maresca isn't going to be right for us if we get promoted.
I've got it if you want me to read it exactly verbatim.
Yeah, feel free, yeah.
Yeah, so it was, in response to their defeat, whenever it was utter shit. Get Enzo gone once we go up. He's not that guy to elevate us to the next level. Tactically inept, no plan B, and awful game management. Bookmark this comment and come back to it this time next year and you'll all understand where I'm coming from.
We'll do that.
I know I have done.
Have you? Right, excellent. So somebody once said to me, and it was totally tongue-in-cheek this, and a bit of a joke, but they sort of said to me, the first thing any championship side should do the day after they get promoted is sack the manager and get somebody else who's better suited for the Premier League. And there are obviously plenty of examples that totally contradict that. I mean, like Thomas Frank at Brentford being a very obvious one, Bielsa in that first season, Premier League season, being another. But I think if and when Leeds go up, and if it's with Farke, people will say, okay, right, so what he wasn't able to do at Norwich, can he do with Leeds? And, it's kind of fair point of discussion. And I think anytime you get promoted, you've absolutely got to be given the chance. I think around Maresca as well, he hasn't coached, hasn't managed first team, as in the main man in the Premier League. So reasonably, if you're sitting watching Leicester's football and you're thinking that they're going to go up, you could start to, discuss with your mates or debate generally, is this going to work? And you always have to bear in mind that you'll get better players in the Premier League, that you will sign players. But for now, you think you would sort of suck up the odd defeat to Middlesbrough and crack on. I mean, I think when Farke was saying that he's convinced that they'll finish top 2, I think what happened to Southampton last night is why he would say that, because it's so difficult for the chasing pack to reel in a side who are already on 78 points. It's going to be very difficult for all of the 3 teams below, or 2 of the 3 teams below, to make that happen. But it was a few weeks ago where I was talking about the piece that Rob Tanner at The Athletic did about the Swansea win, where they seemed to beat Swansea nice and easily, and it was all a bit tetchy and it was all a bit weird, the atmosphere at the ground. And it's odd to see that they're not sort of quietly delighted.
Well, I think, is it because we as football fans, we all naturally tend to project our thoughts further down the road, I suppose, because Leeds fans are doing it. Everybody does it, don't they? What would happen?
Football demands that. Football's kind of done that,
Yeah, and actually, the issue is to focus on the immediacy of this season, isn't it? It's the here and now. We need to get out of this division, then you worry about it. What's next? But you can't help but do that, because I have idled over the thought of, is this style of football sustainable in the Premier League? I tend towards the opinion of thinking, do you know what? It probably is, because you've got a really effective transitional counter-attacking side with fast players in it, skillful players in it, who are good at dribbling. And I think that can actually take you a long way in the Premier League, or certainly far enough up the Premier League that you're not in immediate danger when you contrast it with the approach of some of the bottom teams like Burnley. What Burnley are doing just is baffling to me.
Yeah.
Trying this ultra stylish football. I mean, I haven't watched them closely enough to know exactly what it is they're doing, but they're trying to play the right way, in air quotes, and just getting absolutely hammered by far better teams most of the time.
That's it. I watch Sheffield United, and I think they just generally look poor. And Burnley are not great, but I do think with Burnley there are things that they could do which would not make them so susceptible in games that they have a pretty low chance of winning anyway. I think what really matters is that, particularly if you're sticking to your style, is that when you go up, you elevate individual positions and you invest properly, and you make sure that you do have a much stronger team on paper, a much stronger lineup than you got promoted with, without completely gutting the entire thing. And
to sign players who complement the system as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we go up, we have Rasmus Christensen coming back, we have Mark Rocker coming back, we have Brendan Aronson coming back. The strength's already there.
Sorted. Strength and depth.
All like new signings.
Strength and depth. I mean, I do, when we went down and to the Leicester game, I do remember watching them playing out from the back and thinking to myself, the way they were doing it, thinking, I could see you running into trouble with this style, this tactical approach pretty quickly. But then you always have to check yourself and say, yeah, but if you sign better players who are more capable of that, then perhaps it starts to work. And the one thing, in Farke's favour, aside from anything else, is that, defensively, Leeds are very strong and very solid. Even Millie last season conceding a lot of goals because the defence in front of him was pretty terrible, but also his stats were not great. He was letting in a lot more than he should have been, whereas he's kind of bang on target this season, and that he's like another player who Farke has managed to manage into better form, and he's done that with quite a few people. Yeah,
I'm fully aware as well that this all could spectacularly bite me on the arse, but don't kill me for being optimistic or loosely optimistic about it. I know that I'm under no illusions that if we were to go up, that it's a bottom half finish almost certainly for your first season back. I know that, and you're going to lose a lot of games just because that's how difficult the Premier League is. It's hard to get a win at that level, but I don't know. I'd go into it with far more of a sense of calm and a sense that there's a plan that's not just scattergun. And again, and I'm going back to Victor Orta again here, and just signing people that don't necessarily make sense to me. Like when you look back at, for example, the signing of Rodrigo when we went up, knowing that you've got this ultra high output, ultra high tempo football, this high pressing, a man that very clearly to the eye couldn't press in the way that was needed by the system.
Well, Tom Worville, who used to be a stats guy at the Athletic and went on to work for Leipzig for a while, he did a piece after Rodrigo signed saying it's hard to pin this to Rodrigo individually, but where he's coming from, Valencia, they just do not press at all. Like, it's just not their style. It's not what they do. They're actually really lax when it comes to pressing in comparison to most La Liga teams, let alone Bielsa. So it was a definite shift. But I also felt there was an issue that you were signing somebody who quite clearly wanted to play at 9, who was being used at 10. And as things have gone on...
Thankfully, we don't have that debate anymore.
Yeah. and never will again, yeah. But given that the alternative at the time was Ollie Watkins, they've missed the trick there, haven't they?
Yeah, I would say so, probably overall. But,
I don't even think probably overall.
Yeah,
Watkins has been brilliant.
There was a spell, though, where Watkins wasn't doing as well, and you could have made an argument in that first season Well, maybe Rodrigo's a more obvious investment, I suppose, because he's got the proven quality of
More of a finished article.
Spain's number 9 and all that. He's more likely to contribute. I can't remember when he got that first season, but at the point of signing him, there would have been an argument to say he's much more likely to get you 12 goals this season than Ollie Watkins. Yeah,
that's probably true, but not necessarily at 10 rather than 9. But I think with Watkins, he had a lot of time on his side, didn't he? He was much younger, and yeah, it is. None of it's provable at this stage, and it could have been that Watkins would have come in and that wouldn't have worked either. But there's a lot about Watkins when you watch him that I think Bielsa would have liked.
Yes, very much so. Well, let's go back to the here and now then on Friday night, and I want a prediction from you. I don't necessarily want a score prediction from you because I just want a prediction about what you think the night's going to be like.
It's going to be spicy.
Well, Phil said a draw wouldn't be a bad result. If I offered you a draw now or a flip of a coin, are you gambling or are you going to? Well, it's not a flip of a coin. You can take a point now, or you can
play the game.
You can play the game.
Well, I'm probably just going to play the game because that's what's going to happen.
But I think everyone plays the game. I don't think anyone's considering taking a point.
I don't want the draw. No, because as we've said before, it's draws in this league that kill you, isn't it? You can afford to lose the odd game, but if you're going for wins in most of them, that's how you get up.
Who's under more pressure in this game?
Marginally Leeds, because they've got the comfort of the points gap, haven't they? But it'll be interesting to see how they react if we win. I dare say among the fan base there'll be that sort of defensive kind of, well, look, there's only 12 games rather left to go, and we've got a 6-point gap. It should be enough. And they'd say, well, we're still 6 points clear, no kind of thing.
Yeah, and fair enough, yeah.
But arses would start twitching if we got that gap down to 6.
That's what I mean. Do you think a defeat would be more concerning for Leicester or for Leeds? Do you think Leeds could be more philosophical about it than Leicester? You were mentioning
to finish the weekend. To finish the weekend in 4th would feel like a bit of a psychological blow, though, Phil.
Yeah, I guess it probably would. But you would say that if there was a game in the run that's left that Leeds were likely to lose or more likely to lose than most, this is the one.
That's what I'm saying, is that we've developed almost a kind of circumspect attitude towards the league. But then again, actually, if we do lose and we do finish the weekend in 4th, everyone will be shitting their pants.
Yeah. I know you said don't panic.
But no, I won't. I'll think, do you know what? There's plenty more football left to go. But it'll make me feel like shit over the weekend because Leeds United can do that. But I still have enough hope with the respective run-ins that all the teams have got, that we've got enough in us to see us over the line.
Well, the best idea would be to win this, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
When did Farke say we can look at the table?
He shifts the goalpost slightly, but I think from 40 games onwards, he's quite happy for people to look at the table. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, got ages to go then.
Mate, it's only 10 weeks. 10 weeks.
Don't you worry. Be round in no time.
10 weeks and all this is over, and then we can start to worry about, well, if we don't go up, it's out. Well, first of all, it's the playoffs that we can worry about in 10 weeks. And then second of all, if we don't go up in the playoffs, who we're going to have to sell. Or if we do go up, well, this side's not going to be good enough to stay up. So we can start to worry about who we need to buy then.
But this thing from him about get 26 wins, get 2 points a game, and then kind of go from there, it's kind of worked for him so far, hasn't it? Of just, kind of letting that tick over and not getting too engaged in what's happening with other clubs, which must be quite difficult at the moment because it is so, like you said, if someone had said to you 69 points after 33 games, you would say, well, that's automatic promotion, that, isn't it? That's where it's going to go. But even Leicester, 78 points from 33 games, can't be 100% certain yet, can they?
No.
I mean, I do think they're going up. I just can't see how it won't happen from here. And part of the reason for that is that not everybody behind them is going to win every game. They will drop points, but so will everybody else. And they have that cushion, which should be enough for them. But it will get very interesting if Leeds win on Friday.
What we'll say is I'm captivated by the idea, and it's what I was touching on in the previous show. I'm captivated by the idea of having something to celebrate this time because we were denied last time. I feel like we've got that one. It's in the bank. It's waiting to be
You
let
deserve
out.
it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, fair enough.
I deserve to have a nice time, and that's what I'm holding on to. Right, we'll wrap the show up there. Congratulations on your Villain of the Week award that will almost
Thank you
certainly
very much.
be bestowed.
Is it still the Ken Bates?
It is, yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't recorded that show yet, but it will come out probably before this one comes out. But
Excellent.
We're recording it after this, but I'm almost certain you will get that. So
Yeah, I can't see anything happening in the next, 5 or 6 hours that will change that.
God, no. Cheers, Phil, Michael. Right, we will get back together after the weekend then, I guess, and see how that one went.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy. We'll see you soon.
The Square Ball Podcast.